In our last lecture, we were discussing various factors which are advantageous to participative management and how the conditions have to be created for implementation of participative management. Today, we start our discussion with various types of participative management. In fact, various types and levels of participative management we will call about these as. These are presented by various authors in terms of information sharing, consultation, joint decision making, self management and profit sharing. Formally, we try to say that participative management is being implemented in terms of these, and in various countries around the globe we find that different types of participative management have been implemented and practiced. So, information sharing and consultation, these are the lowest level in the hierarchy of participative management, because here only we are using discussion, suggestion box and these kinds of systems. But in joint decision making, there is joint decision made by workers, managers and the decision makers. So, the joint decision making is done in terms of involving people at all levels in hierarchy. Self management is the type of participative management which is considered as the highest form of participative management being practiced in Yugoslavia, where workers' body called work collectives actually manages the affairs of the organization. In fact, they will appoint the perhaps the works manager, and they are the decision making body for the managing of the system. Not many countries are having self management. Joint decision making is prevalent in many countries, say France, Germany, many other countries including India. We have to some extent, at least we have the joint management councils, about which we will talk later. Profit sharing, many authors believe that profit sharing is no participative management, but others believe that participative management has its great reflection in profit sharing also, and that is why we are nowadays practicing ESOP as one of the important practices also in India. The idea there is that if we give some share or some profit to the employees, perhaps they will start feeling that this is my organization, and so the motivation will come out, and so they will have better feeling of we, and perhaps the results will be reflected in the overall performance of the organization. That's perhaps the idea underlying this. When we are looking at these systems, we find that in the Japanese system, something different, I should say, or it's a combination of some systems which are there in this hierarchy. There we are using the concept of quality circles. I am sure some of you have heard about this quality circles. This is a combination of, we can say, consultation and perhaps some kind of a joint decision making, in the sense that we have the involvement of employees at various levels to solve certain problems. So, in quality circles, what we do, that any employee of the organization can identify any problem of the organization. Then there is a suggestion box, and there is a steering committee that has some kind of a structure which will be something like the top management, then the middle management and the lowest level. So, the top management finally decides the what decisions have to be taken, but then there is a steering committee, and then there is a committee of the employees, and they meet occasionally. problem selection can come from any employee of the organization, and in fact, the structure of quality circle is also very interesting, in the sense that organization perhaps puts that on the notice board that we are going to frame quality circles for such and such thing, and anyone who is interested can volunteer to become the member of that quality circle. So, the membership in quality circle is voluntary, and once you become the member of quality circles, then you attend the meetings and then try to solve the problem, and this is the way the involvement of employees begins. Now, there is no compulsion on you to continue in that quality cycle, even though normally people perhaps will not like to leave, but if you want to leave that for any reason, then there is no such compulsion that you cannot leave. Another point is that quality circle, sometimes the meetings may be there during the lunch hours, sometimes beyond your working hours, but the if you are interested in actually solving a particular problem, then there is an intrinsic motivation, and you will be so much interested that you will use perhaps your extra time also to solve certain problems. The problems which could be solved could be of any type, even though the quality circle, as the name is, did begin with improvement of quality of products, and the credit is given to Professor Dr. Ishikawa of Japan, who first introduced this. At that time, we were looking at the concept of quality in the engineering manufacture or the manufacturing systems, but then gradually it has become a movement. Today, we are using quality circles to improve any aspect of the functioning of an organization. May it be your scheduling, may it be a space problem, may it be hospital management, or it may be any other thing in addition to the quality management that we are doing in the shop floor level. As results have proved that quality circle gives satisfaction to people, and it really gives them so much motivation that people come out with so much creativity. So, the definitions that we have taken up earlier in this in the last lecture, actually we find that all those get sort of validated by the use of quality circles that we are talking about. So, that is the Japanese system of quality circles. Now, another point into the quality circle is that it is a very much an organized activity. The analysis at the end is done, even though it may begin with a brainstorming session, but then finally the analysis is done using Pareto diagram, graphs, and so many other kinds of cause and effect analysis. And finally, a report is done, made, and this report is then presented to the management. In any organization, there could be many quality circles. There is no limit how many quality circles could be there, because when the suggestions come, then the suggestions may be there from any person to have quality circles, and these then the management perhaps will select which quality circle you want to actually give the first priority, you can say, or first preference. And so, at the same time there may be 10 quality circles working, and then 10 quality circles will generate their results and reports and will be presented before the management. And then we see that how this particular quality circle brings out results. So, what we find that quality circle becomes an interesting and perhaps very efficient method of involving people in decision making, and that results into great satisfaction to all the members of the organization. And some organizations also do an annual kind of evaluation of the best quality circle to motivate, of course, the members. So, you can see that in the quality circles that we are talking about, which is the Japanese system of participative management, we begin with information sharing of some kind, then there is a suggestion, there is consultation, then people get into a group, and then the committees meet, and finally the results. So, at that particular point of time, when the committees have been made, you have the quality circle where there is a steering committee, and then there is a final decision making committee. So, in some way we can say the reflection of joint management is also coming there. So, this is the way we find, and this has been working very successfully. Also, many of the Indian organizations are using quality circles very successfully. Many of the public sector and multinational organizations are using quality circles, because it has good results, it has great flexibility, it has intrinsic motivation, and it has no compulsion. And so, people come to participate if they wish to come, wish to participate. If they are not interested, nobody is forcing them that you have to come and give your suggestions or something of that kind. So, this is a very interesting concept, and it has now become a movement, the quality movement, and which most of the organizations today are practicing these days. So, coming to the types of and levels of participative management that we are talking about, joint decision making, we have seen that this is there prevalent in many countries, and also in India we also have some system of joint decision making. So, from here we move on to these types and levels of participative management. We move on to talk about that how can then the change be brought about using participative management. In all cases, it is assumed that the existing organizations are seeking a change. In fact, participative management itself is a strategy where we want to introduce participative management, we want to bring about a change, introducing from a traditional management to participative management. You would recollect that in our last lecture we were trying to compare the traditional management and participative management, and we have seen that from the traditional management to participative management how we change, and how that is a change of perhaps an attitude and values within the organization. So, there are see the three questions which I have listed here are about participative management that we have to actually address. These are: where are we now, where do we want to go, or where do we want to be, and what is the best way of being there. If we look at these three issues, perhaps we can see that we need to bring about a change also in our organizations in terms of participative management. So, here are some of these issues I am going to present to you. These are, when we say where are we now, we have to analyze what is the culture, what is our culture, what is the basis for our current structure, what is the driving force for this bringing about this change, how supportive is this change by our people, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, and what are the current what are the problems which are existing currently. Some of these issues we have dealt with in our earlier lecture. So, if we look at each of these issues, perhaps we will be able to implement participative management in our organizations. So, where do we want to be? Every organization has a vision, we have a dream, and we want to go there, and we want to actually come out with that dream that we have for ourselves. So, this vision, is important. Unless we have a vision, why should we have participative management? So, that is the issue, and we have to debate that what is our vision and what do we want to achieve using participative management. So, if there is a vision, do we really want to go there? How to complete this vision? And what happens if we don't? Obviously, we won't be able to meet the competitive advantage. Our survival and growth may be at stake, and there are so many other related issues. And what is significantly different from the current practices? These are some of the issues that we have to understand. And then what is the best way to do this, or to go about doing this, or to get there? How much change is needed actually? Do we need self-management system? Do we need only information sharing? Do we need a joint decision making? Do we need quality circles? What do we really need? So, how much do we really need? That's the issue that we have to discuss and debate. Can the practices be changed without any structure? Perhaps we have to again look into that. We need a structure to change these practices. Then what priority exists on the change issue? See, some people might say that no, I don't want to change because I am making reasonably good profit. Okay, so why change? But actually, when you look at the world is so dynamic, and today you may be comfortable and tomorrow is the time then when you see that you are lagging behind. So, change is inevitable and we have to change, but how much change, why change, using what strategy, that is what you as a manager you have to understand. Then how much our organization is affected, and who should decide about this change, and how should they be actually approached in terms of achieving the results. So, when we are talking about participative management as a change strategy for change, we have to actually look at all aspects of the system. Only then we can have better results. So, the factors which are influencing the success of participative management perhaps will call for issues like massive arrangement of education and training of workers and managers, the issues like creating faith in the new managerial values and culture. Trade union leaders should be prepared to shift their strategy and perception, and they should become more responsible and cooperative in the process of organization management. Because when we look at participative management as an industrial relations strategy, we have to see that the participants in that strategy are the hierarchy of managers, the workers, the unions, and of course the government agencies which are trying to enact the legislation, and sometimes also we talk about the other stakeholders. So, when we are talking about the factors, so whole lot of factors are there when we are trying to introduce participative management as a strategy for the successful functioning of a company, bringing about change in terms of the whole management strategy. At this point, let us look at what are the theories which are proposed by a number of researchers, authors and thinkers. You must have heard about theory X and theory Y. If not, let me very briefly explain to you theory X and theory Y. In fact, in our introduction, we have talked about theory X and theory Y. And we have talked about Professor McGregor's theory, where he has proposed theory Y as the theory which is also known as theory Y concept, which is important for participative management. This we were talking about even earlier also. So, he has tried to say that for motivation we need to create such conditions where people will come out with creativity and the higher order needs become important. Another theory is by Herzberg, which we have touched upon in our chapter on motivation. When we were discussing motivation, we had discussed the two-factor theory of Herzberg and his associates. And in this theory, we had two sections. One was the hygiene factor, the other one was the motivator factor. In the motivator factor, we were talking about that it is the quality of work itself that is important, and where we can give autonomy, variety, responsibility, feedback, challenge, etc., to the employees. And this in essence, which is known also as the job enrichment factor, is reflecting the conditions that we are actually wanting to create for participative management. In addition to this, there are number of other theories like industrial relations model given by Miles is there, and number of theories like Likhart's theory of participative leadership is there. In fact, Likert introduced participative leadership theory, suggesting that there is a continuum of democratic and autocratic leadership, and in between there is participative leadership, and this becomes an extremely important factor. He has discussed many other things in his book on the new patterns of management. Similarly, Professor McGregor's book has also discussed, the book is The Human Side of Enterprise, and he has discussed some of these issues. So, from here we move to understand that are there any myths about participative management? Yes, there are number of myths, and which I have tried to present to you now. The participative management is what, and participative management is not, what it is not and what it is. So, here now I am discussing that what are the myths, what people think is participative management, and what participative management is actually not. So, let us see, when we are talking about participative management, it is done with people, okay, it is not done to people. That means people get involved, not that you are trying to impose participative management. So, it is done with people, okay, not to people. Then business based decision strategy. Participative management is a business based decision strategy, and we are talking about participative management also as the empowering team of individuals to make decisions and relate to their own work. So, it is related also to the overall working and the business strategy of the organization, whereas participative management human resource management is based on decisions, but having all the decisions made by the individuals and teams may or may not be applicable all the time. So, participative management becomes important in that sense. Then increasing empowerment for the whole organization is important in terms of participative management, whereas if you are talking about what participative management is not, then empowering only a select few. So, whereas we are talking about empowering the whole organization or empowering the only few, that's as against what participative management is not. Now, participative management is a process that requires ongoing leadership and change in behavior from top to bottom. Whereas people many times think that participative management is imposed uh, in an organization without any active leadership. That's not true. So, there are certain myths which we have to actually think and perhaps clarify in our mind, that where is the point of departure from participative management to not really participative management, we can say. Now, participative management is a planned change process. Okay, many people believe that this is an unplanned journey, which is not true. It is a planned change process. In our management of change, we have been discussing that how a planned change process happens. Now, we are also talking about doing what you say, whereas in many people believe that talking a philosophy is not necessarily leading to any kind of action. So many times we say, okay, theoretically we are talking about this, but actually in action there is nothing. But that's not true about participative management system. And participative management actually means getting into the ring, okay, and not that it's talking talking anything else, in terms of a good fight or anything of that kind. Also, participative management is a consolidation of many different practical insights about people and work, whereas many people believe that this is a brilliant discovery of Japanese, even though the origin is of course from there. But today, as it has been it has been sort of a practiced or institutionalized, we can say, or it has been made into a movement, we find that things are quite different, even though the starting point was in the Japanese system. So, every culture and every organization perhaps is trying to redesign its system of participative management now. Redesigning the way all work gets done, this is done in participative management exercises, whereas redesigning the job of hourly workers, people often believe that it is only for redesigning the work of hourly workers, whereas it is not true. When we are talking about participative management, we are trying to say that redesigning work for everyone from top to bottom, and the redesign has to be sort of matching with the roles that people play in that particular position. So, this is not only that only the lower level workers we are talking about in terms of participative management. So, in participative management, tapping the potential of people, that becomes very important, and reaching to some kind of revolution of social values. That's one of the myths. People might be thinking that it's only reaching to that value, but actually tapping the potential of people is important, and clearly assigned responsibilities are important, and teams and the individual collaborations are important in participative management. Whereas some of the myths still remain, that it is only about this self, or it is only about the self directed themes, or it is only about some kind of a reaction to the revolution of social values. Now, participative management is also about effective utilization of resources, and it is sometimes we can see that it is expensive to introduce this because it may or may not have potentially very high return, and many people believe that participative management is only about downsizing and it is free. Actually, it is not free, it is part of the organization's functioning. So, if we are introducing participative management, we also expect that it has to have some kind of a cost benefit analysis. So, it is not all that free, and we are not introducing participative management just like that. Okay. Cost may be tangible or intangible, does not matter, but some kind of a cost we have to look into that. So, making effective decisions, that becomes extremely important in terms of those tangible or intangible gains that we have discussed, and this is a long term process, whereas many people believe that this is only about consensus and it may or may not be anything like long term process. And participative management is about developing organizations into learning systems. Today, everyone is talking about learning organizations, and we know that an organization cannot survive and grow unless that becomes a learning organization, creates new knowledge and tries to imbibe these new values in their system. Whereas, many people believe that this is a program with some kind of a fixed starting and fixed end, okay, and then there is nothing like the learning organization concept, and so this is just to eliminate the failures. At this point, let me take you to another issue that relates to participative management, that is the characteristics of the managers who are actually managing participative management situation. When I say characteristics, I mean the personality traits of participative management, participative managers. We have seen in the studies that if you have certain personality traits, you can become better participative manager. Let us talk about a concept called emotional intelligence. These days we are talking about emotional intelligence of managers. This is an attitude of managers who is a matured person and who has certain values and he can manage the system very successfully. So, if a manager has higher emotional intelligence, then he becomes a better participative manager. Similarly, the studies have also shown another personality trait, like we talk about the Machiavellism, that the managers those who are having this personality trait, perhaps they can manage participative management better. So, what we find that if we are managing participative management system, we have to understand that managers must gear themselves to the participative management practices, also in terms of their own personality traits, their attitudes, and perhaps the kind of social interaction that they have. If we look at participative managers' characteristics also in terms of the transactions that the participative manager perhaps is following in terms of transactional analysis that we are talking about, then the participative manager has to have good complementary transaction most of the times, then he will perhaps become very successful. Similarly, in our discussion on communication, we have seen that there are different types of communication strategies, and if manager believes that he can have the very good communication strategy, then he becomes a very good participative manager. So, these aspects are also equally important for the team working, and many authors have gone to say that participative management is a team management. After discussing some of the issues which relate to the personality traits of the managers themselves, now let me explain to you about one of the research studies that we have conducted here in IIT Delhi. This is a study which we have conducted in the National Textile Corporation of India, and in terms of participative management we tried to find out whether those who have positive belief on participative management, they are highly committed and perhaps they are more involved in the overall decision making. We selected the union office bearers of the National Textile Corporation units, and then we tried to study their participative management attitude and their commitment about work commitment, and we try to see whether there is any correlation between their participative management attitude and the commitment attitude. And we find that there is very high commitment related to participative management attitude, and so there is very high correlation between these factors. So, what we are trying to see that those who are actually getting into the participative management exercises, they are also highly committed people in the organization. So, if we want participative management to get institutionalized, we as a result of that institutionalization, we can also have the better outcome in terms of the organizational commitment of all the participants. So, in this study we found that also we try to compare the profit making and non-profit making organizations, and we found significant difference in terms of participative management in these organizations. So, we find that Indian organizations also are affected by participative management in terms of very many positive outcomes. So, I think it is time that we all look into this management strategy a bit more seriously. So, after this case study, let me talk to you about team building and participative management, which is another important aspect of participation. But before I do that, let me share with you one video clipping from an Indian organization that we have done here in one of the industries of the National Capital Region, and the interviewer here is one of my students. So, over to this video film, and then in the next section we are going to talk about team building and participation.